Hi, everyone, and welcome to the latest monologue. Um, Today, it's a monologue that's very much attached to current events, and it's going to be about the High Court ruling in Isiolo yesterday about the legality of certain conservancies in the north. I'm not a lawyer, but I cannot overstate the importance of that ruling because having listened to it, the judgment rendered, I heard so many things that myself and others have spoken about for so many years. And I won't go into the details of it, but I'll put a link to the video of it in the comments, so you can have a look at your own time. But the key points that were raised and that jumped out at me. One was the very vexing issue of conservancy rangers, and I've long spoken about the legality or lack thereof of civil society or NGOs bearing arms and being involved in law enforcement. I've raised questions over the legality of um, people having guns and uniforms, government issue guns and uniforms, while not under the command of any of our security services or security forces. I mean, in Kenya, those who are not familiar with this, arms and firearms are tightly controlled in Kenya, and the only people who really have them and use them are government security forces, each of which has what's called a code of conduct or chain of command, where every gun is under the command of somebody. There's a chain of command, but these ones there were no chains of command. While still they were operating right in their home villages, which is against all policies that are practiced by Kenya's security forces. You never get posted as a policeman in your home village or your rural area. But these were uniformed militias, is what I call them, operating within their villages and their own communities where they have friends, relatives, brothers, sisters, enemies, and all that. So there were vast legal problems there. And I've long complained that the community conservancy is a mongrel or a chimera. And that's how they escape any regulation in Kenya. Because it's not it's a piece of land that's controlled by somebody who is not registered anywhere in the Ministry of Lands, who doesn't have a title deed, who doesn't have a PIN number. It's an entity that doesn't have a title deed, a PIN number, or license for anything they do. So they can't be subjected to any regulation, not least taxation. They don't pay any tax of any kind. And I raised this over and over again, and every time these questions would be suppressed. I suffered a lot of ostracization in my profession because of it. Many of the people who I was in contact with um, lost jobs and suffered all kinds of oppression because of raising questions of these things. And the reason this happened is because these conservancies, the mongrels that they are backed by millions and millions of dollars, which then raises the other question. Now that these judges have found very obviously illegalities that even I could see years ago, and I've stated them. How are we going to deal with the issue that foreign governments have been using their taxpayers' money to fund illegal activities in Kenya, to fund illegal militias in Kenya, to fund illegal use of firearms in Kenya? And I'm talking about United States government through USAID, AFD through Agence Française de Développement, uh, Denmark government through Danida, and various others, UK government through DFID and UK Aid. This is a serious, it has lifted the lid on a serious legal vacuum that we've suffered, because this, one would ask, people who don't know will ask, so how has this gone on for so long? The thing the technique they've been using is that They make sure they recruit senior government people to their boards. They co-opt all our senior civil servants in the relevant ministries. They co-opt our ministers. Even in the current government, shortly after they came to office, I had a sit down with the PS in the Ministry of Wildlife, and I had a long talk with her about these issues. The following week, she led her whole ministry and KWS staff to go and pay homage to NRT. Even our taxpayers' money. She recently released a video where they're saying that our taxpayers' money, the government has been using taxpayers' money to fund some conservancies without legal basis or backing. How this has been happening is anyone's guess. I certainly don't know. But this is a landmark ruling. And from the responses of the NRT lawyers, which again, there's a short clip which I'll share also in the comments. They're whining that these conservancies existed before the 2010 constitution, which is true. So since when did the fact that you've been doing something illegal for very long, when does that become a mitigating factor? In fact, it makes it worse. You have been a criminal for long. You are an old criminal. You are not a new criminal. Um, the way they have co-opted our government officers at all levels is a source of serious embarrassment to any right-thinking Kenyan. And I'd just like at this moment to acknowledge all the people who risked their jobs. People have been harassed. People have even disappeared. Risked their jobs, risked their safety to stand up against this injustice for so long. Kudos to you. Kudos to you. And many of them I can't name them, but colleagues like Mbaria, Violet Matiru, Stephen Basele, Mario Kuraki, these are people who have worked and spoken so long over these issues. Gilo, and most of all, the one sad spot in all this is the fact that the late Said Wabera, a very courageous and intelligent journalist from Marsabit, who first flagged these problems years and years ago. My greatest regret is that Said Wabera has not been here to witness this. And the comebacks or the responses to the judgment from some of the lawyers and the NRT lackeys has been that, oh, NRT has been so helpful to people. They've been doing this, that, the other for the community. You can continue. If you've been doing charity, please feel free to continue doing it. You don't need a conservancy to do it. If you want to give Mordecai food, you can give Mordecai food with or without a conservancy. And this is the most telling thing, I think. If at all you are helping someone and he's told you to go away, you should not complain. If you are helping him, then just go away. But the complaints, the whining, are evidence that NRT was helping other parties, not us. The biggest beneficiaries of the conservancy movement were not us. And another key point that came out in the judgment is the judge specifically mentioned that umbrella bodies should desist from any involvement in those areas under question. And this is particularly, I'll tell you, this is particularly aimed at the Kenya Wildlife Conservancies Association, because it is an umbrella body, and its importance to the conservancy movement has been that it is the mask, it is the one that cleanses the injustices. First of all, they create an umbrella body which has membership of all and sundry. There are some conservancies that are privately owned. It's someone, Mordecai's private land, he decides to make it a conservancy. There's no legal problem any whatsoever with such. But they're also members of the KWCA. So KWCA puts them in there because it's important to have them, because they cleanse the dirty ones. They make it seem, oh, a conservancy, someone who only knows a private conservancy will think, oh, a conservancy is a good thing. or it's even if it's not a good thing, it's not a harmful thing. This is Mordecai took his land, decided to make it a conservancy. There's no problem with that. But when they are included in there, and even up to this day, there is no proper legal definition for a conservancy. That's why I call it a mongrel. They've been working so hard to make the to formalize the position of these conservancy rangers. And KWCA has been doing that for years, has been working on that for years, because KWCA knows their position of those rangers is illegal. We've been working so hard to cleanse injustice for so long. It's high time you start using those heavy donor funding to do something right for Kenyans. It cannot be business as usual. In fact, what makes me happy is that this thing is in unraveling. My biggest worry, and I've told many people this, that my biggest worry was that the community conservancy mongrel would collapse, possibly in rebellion and bloodshed. Because we know northern Kenya, there's proliferation of small arms. My greatest joy is that it has been found out and it has been brought to a halt inside an orderly court of law in a legal manner. The judges even mentioned the fact that we have armed militias or armed personnel operating outside any of our legal security structures, despite the proliferation of small arms in northern Kenya. The judges said that. They picked up on something that is obvious and many of us have been speaking about for many years, but has been ignored by everyone. We had gotten to a point that NRT wasn't supplementing what government was doing. NRT had replaced government in vast areas of Kenya, and the government was working for them. In a recent video done by Deutsche Welle and Mario Kuraki and some other colleagues, they actually had the DCI, Department of Criminal Investigation officers, tracking them and questioning them over why they are disturbing NRT. Who works for who in this country? I'm so glad that things are changing. But above all, my greatest joy is that this change has come about in a peaceful and orderly manner. I can't say how happy I am for the people of Merti in Merti sub county where that fought this long battle since 2021 actually, and have now achieved this victory. And the fact is, this thing had become a runaway train. We could not be able to do anything about it because they were just expanding further and further and further, because no one had the financial muscle, political muscle, or the wherewithal to stand up to NRT. The one thing that they did wrong here is that they got so arrogant in their expansion of conservancies that they now even chose to do it without public participation. They did not even consult the communities, and it's the public participation point that got them taken to court. They had gotten that arrogant that they didn't care anymore. So all the other questions we had raised before had not been able to stop them. But the public participation thing is what made all this unravel and all these other illegalities to come out. And if we read in history, huge empires, the Roman Empire, the various Chinese dynasties, the USSR, many empires collapsed under the weight of their own contradictions or bullshit. I don't know how long we expected or NRT expected to go on with these contradictions. So it's now time for them to do some introspection. Let them try and find out, instead of trying to intimidate Mordecai, intimidate so and so, threatening so and so, co-opting so and so into the board. No one, we don't care who's in your board. It's time for you guys to shape up and start trying to do the right thing, or just fold up everything and go away. But it would be good if you could find it in yourselves the intellectual depth to shape up and do something that is actually beneficial to the communities you purport to serve. Currently, what they do is beneficial to donors, to Meta, Netflix, those carbon trading pirates, and everybody willing to take land away from pastoralists and disenfranchise them. And it's come to a stop. Everything that has a beginning has an end. I think NRT has had a good run. It's been 20 years, 2004 to 2024. Now wake up or ship out. But as for those of us who've cried over the fought this injustice for years, we are enjoying the victory. And for all Kenyans who finally are feeling some freedom, yeah, enjoy it. You deserve it.